Welcome to Intentionality with Dominique, the show that helps business owners become valued and in-demand suppliers in the marketplace to scale their businesses. Let's start today's show with host and intentional connector, Dominique Simpson-Milton.
Welcome to another episode of Intentionality, the show dedicated to improving the success rate of entrepreneurs and their businesses by sharing the strategies and tactics of successful suppliers. I am your host, Dominique Simpson-Milton, and today's show is being brought to you by Capital One and CVMSDC, also known as the Council. Today, I am pleased to welcome Moses Foster, CEO of Cary Group and one of our leading MBEs. He is here today to share how his business has stood the test of time by stepping outside of the box with creative solutions and how being at the table and in the room makes a difference. Moses, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, always a pleasure. So tell us, Cary Group, you've been around for 17 years.
That's right.
How did you start the business?
Well, I worked in corporate for a while. I actually worked at Capital One. And before that, I worked at ad agencies. And, I had always wanted to run a business. So I was, 37 years old. I wasn't married at the time, didn't have kids. And I said, you know what, if I'm ever going to do this thing, I'm going to do it now. So not that I couldn't learn anything else, but I felt like I was ready. And so I stepped out in 2007, hung out my shingle, and the rest is history.
Excellent. Well, first tip for our viewers, you had expertise in advertising and marketing.
I did.
Okay.
And actually, my last job before starting my company was leading the internal agency at Capital One. So, it was a very, very much an agency-like atmosphere. Just internal to the organization.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So there are thousands of advertising and marketing firms out there. What sets your company apart from others? What is your unique differentiator?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that differentiate us. One is I have been the client before, right? So I understand client needs, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I think being the client, one of the things that I saw was that sometimes agencies got far more excited about the very best, most beautiful creative as opposed to the business objectives or the outcomes. And so what I wanted to do was create an agency that could do all the beautiful work, but also kept client objectives and goals in mind. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart, is that a lot of the people in my organization have worked both on the agency side as well as on the client side. The other thing that I think sets us apart is that we bring together, we say we're, to some people, we say we're an ad agency, but really we're like a small consultancy, right? So we bring some pretty powerful capabilities together that go beyond just a traditional creative agency. We've got the creative, but we've also got data analytics. We've got user experience and information architecture. We've got software engineering, all in the organization. We've got strategy. So we really like to solve problems, and I think we've organized ourselves to do that.
Well, that's very unique, and you don't know this about me, but I worked on the agency side. I was at Darcy Macy's, Benton and Bowles way back in the day.
I think that was Capital One's very first agency when Bill McDonald joined, when I was back in the brand group.
Yeah, so I worked on the agency side, but I love the client side better, right? Because the client side, you had your arms went everything. So I'm glad to know that you are melding the two and making sure that you're listening to the client from both perspectives. Excellent. So let's talk about being in the room. A lot of business owners do not understand, Moses, the importance of volunteering, the importance of partnering with your clients, and being in the room at the table. Things that happen behind the closed doors are just so important to grow your business.
Absolutely. I think, one of the things that I learned, and, I wish I'd been smart enough to know this in advance. I wasn't, but relationships are very, very important.
Everything.
So, a lot of the people that I worked with in the past or had, been associated with, when I left and started a firm, they called me up and they said, hey, we used to work together. We did that. Yeah, I remember. Well, would you think about doing this for me? Or would you think about doing that for me? And I had built these relationships just by, being good to people and people being good to you. People remember that. And I think that's really important. So, I think that if you extend that from, being in an organization to starting your own organization, you think about ways that you can work with people, help people, and good things come in return. You're not always doing things just to get new business. But building associations and building relationships tend to create opportunities. And those opportunities, you really can't model that. But I can tell you that those investments in building relationships and, meeting people and being part of the community have paid off in great dividends for me.
Excellent, excellent. And just to give our viewers an example, for our last event, for the golf tournament, you partnered with us and you took our golf tournament to a whole nother level. We like to say you curated that golf tournament and made it special. But for our viewers, you actually worked behind the scenes with us. We had weekly calls and you were on the call with our corporate partners and they were able to see you working in a different way. So now that corporate client might reach out to you and say, hey, we want to do some work with you because they saw how you worked to create and cultivate that golf tournament.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing like being in the trenches working on a project together and you get to see who people really are. And I think I'm really proud of my team. I think they're a great team. And I think anybody associated with that golf tournament behind the scenes saw that, we like quality and we like things done right. And we like delivering, we like delivering delight. We like delivering beyond just expectation. And so all the work that went into that was really geared towards delivering kind of a fantastic and memorable experience. And we hope to do the same thing with you guys again next year.
We're looking forward to you doing it next year. And I love that line. That's a t-shirt, deliver delight. Do you use that or did you just make that up here or do you use it?
It's a term, delight is a term that actually I think I became exposed to when I worked at Capital One. We always talked about surprising and delighting.
I like that.
I think, meet the client objective, and that gives you permission to go outside of just the expectations to the place of delight. And that's what we aspire to do.
Excellent. Deliver delight. So what does it mean, Moses, to work on your business versus in your business?
Yeah. Working on your business versus in your business is something that you start to learn as you grow and as you evolve. I'd say there are a couple of things to that. One is, if you are in the weeds every single day, and quite frankly, when you start a business, there's not a lot of, it's hard not to be, right? Because you're probably small when you start. There are probably not enough resources for the things that you have to do. That's normal. But as you grow and as you evolve, you start to understand that if your view is here, then you cannot gain the perspective to see all of the interrelationships and all of the opportunities and all of the strategic maneuvers that you should be doing in order to grow your business in step functions as opposed to incrementally. And that's what I think the benefit of longevity, building great relationships, mentorships, partnerships, and just, really sustaining your business over a long period of time. That gives you the opportunity to do that kind of thing.
Excellent, excellent. So over the last 17 years, what have you learned? What would you do differently than what you did over the last 17 years?
Oh, so many things. I've learned so many things. One of the things that my dad kind of taught me this. People think I'm a pessimist. I'm not. I'm an optimist. But I'm cautiously optimistic. And my model is, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And so when I started my business, one of the things I assumed, as I'm laying out my forecasting charts is, I'm going to make zero revenue in the first year. Zero, right? So I better have enough money, put away to sustain me. And luckily, nobody else was going to starve. I wasn't starving my family. It was just me if I didn't make any money. But, it turns out we made a lot more money than zero, but things also cost a lot more than you think they're going to cost. And so really being conservative in how you plan is really, really important. So that's one of the things that, that I think that, we've learned over time. The other thing, what was the question again? Let me go back to the original question.
Lesson learned over the last 17 years.
Yeah. So another lesson that we've learned is you have to be constantly business developing all the time. Because in a business like mine, which is a services business, you can't snap your fingers and create revenue tomorrow, right? It's not going to happen. The life cycle of closing a deal or winning new business is a long one, right? There's conversation, there's maybe an RFP, there's presentations, there's meeting the partners. There's all those things that happen that are, part of good business development, but they take time. And so, if you get a big account and then you rest on your laurels and just work that account for 3, 4, 5 months, well, you've got 3, 4, 5 months of pipeline that you have mortgaged. You need to constantly be nurturing and growing because there's going to be a time where you need that revenue and it's not going to appear instantly. That's something that I've learned.
Excellent advice. And a lot of people think, okay, I want this client and I'm going to knock on the door and I'm going to get this client overnight. Yeah. And that's not true. it takes how long to get a new client?
It just depends. So there are clients that we have they're literally clients that have taken 8 months and 18 months. And that means there was a, kind of an oral affirmation that we wanted to work together. And from that point, it's the contracts and the NDAs and the MSAs and all of the paperwork and going through the legal department, those types of things. That's what took the time. They wanted to work with us. It just took 18 months to get through the bureaucracy of becoming or being onboarded onto the client.
So, and that's from somebody who said they already want to work with you.
Right.
So I'm talking about, so that's 18 months from them to say, I want to work with you. It took 18 months to get it going and to start to see even the paycheck come in, right? So
it took longer than that for the paycheck.
Okay, so that's important for our viewers to know, right? So you have to have that pipeline full. You can't just rest on 1 or 2 clients, right?
Absolutely.
But then that's the person who said they want to work with you. What about the people who you just cold call, knocking on the doors? It could take multiple years to get a particular client. One client of mine took 7 years to get. I'm so glad when I finally got him. Now he's my boss. Right? But you just never know how long it's going to take. And so you have to have a full pipeline, right? And then you also touched on cash flow. You said you plan for 0, but that's the worst case scenario. Folks don't understand the importance of having a cash flow. Talk to us about that.
Cash flow, really, really important. It's the lifeblood of a business, right? So, when you lay out your forecasting model, the thing that you kind of assume that people are going to pay you reasonably well, right? So it doesn't mean that on the 30th day of a 30-day invoice you get paid, but within the standard deviation you expect to get paid. That's not always the case, and you can have a lot of outstandings that are hanging out there that are approved, you've got a PO for, or whatever, they're in the system somewhere, but that number can get very, very large. And so if you are not careful about the management of your cash and making sure that that you're on top of the things that are outstanding, as well as constantly refilling the tank, if you will, you can get stuck. And Absolutely. I've heard that there's a phrase that companies don't go out of business because of a balance sheet necessarily. They go out of business because of cash.
Cash flow. Cash flow is king, right? Yeah. So we talked about having a funnel. We talked about cash flow. We talked about relationships and getting behind the door, right? Working that. Talk to us about development. I know that you're involved with the University of Richmond, but some people don't understand the importance of stopping and looking at their business from a different lens, taking that time to really dig deep and going to a program like the University of Richmond to work on their business. Talk about the importance of that.
Yeah, so development is important. That's one of the things that I think we're constantly trying to do. I'm constantly trying to do individually. We constantly try to do it for the team, both in terms of opening up opportunities, classes, training, and that type of thing, but also creating an environment in the organization that is a constant learning environment as well. I think we have a lot of smart people in our organization that can teach, up-and-comers or people that need to develop certain skills. And so we have those informal kind of mentor relationships as well. But the program at University of Richmond is powerful because I think it gives people an opportunity to do what you were talking about earlier. Step away from the business. Think about it in a different way. Think about the different layers of your business that might not be your natural power alley or strength, right? So you may be a creative person and not a finance person, but the University of Richmond gives you some financial, paradigms to actually think about. You may be an operations person, but not a creative person. And so you have to think about what's going to differentiate your business. This program actually helps you think about your business with, kind of trusted, established resources and teachers who have done it, both academically as well as in practical application. And I think it's refreshing for the people who come through the program. The other thing that I think they do really well is that they immerse you in an environment with other entrepreneurs. So I believe there's a rule that you have to stay. You have to stay. You have to stay in a hotel. You're local.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to stay on site.
And the benefit of that is powerful.
Powerful. Well, thank you for your involvement with the University of Richmond. So let's take that just a step further. Talk about the team that you need to assemble to be successful, right? Because as you said, you have certain skills. You might be an expert in finance, but not an expert in marketing. How do you assemble that team, to make your business thrive? And then for others who just don't have the resource, what do you suggest that people do to have a winning team?
Yeah, so I think about first culture and alignment with culture, because it's all going to break down if you're a functional expert, but you don't fit into our culture. So if I'm interviewing or I'm looking for someone to fill a role, first thing I want to assess is, are they a good person? Do they have a value system that's kind of aligned with my value system, our value system? Will they interrelate, interact with people in the organization without attitude and, that kind of, we just don't have a lot of time for that. But above and beyond that, or I should say, after that, after you've checked that box that, kind of attitudinally, culture-wise, these are people that fit into the organization, then you have to think about your blind spots, right? Especially as a leader, right? So if you have a blind spot on strategy, or you have a blind spot on finance, or you have a blind spot on operations, you want to find someone who can fill that void for you, and do it in a way that, even if leaders think they can do anything, right? Like, give me enough time, I'll get some books and I'll read and I'll be able to do it. Even if you think you can get to a certain level of acumen with regard to those disciplines, find someone who's going to blow you out of the water, someone who's truly differentiated and has proven it, right? So I also look to experience, where have you done this? Is the place that you've done it at successful? Do you have a record of success? Those are the kinds of things that I look at, because, people that model the behavior typically have been in a situation where the proof has been in the pudding.
Excellent, excellent. To build on that, if you're a small organization and you can't afford those resources internally, you can contract out for experts in those different fields, whether it be HR, legal, contract out and make sure that you bring in the proper resources to help grow your business along.
That's right. And there are innovative, creative ways that you can think about accessing the talent that you can't afford. I did a lot of that in my early days. I built a board of, kind of an advisory board of people who had the know-how that I needed but couldn't afford. I think, never underestimate how giving people who are really good at what they do can be, right? So find some, I have Geraldo Rivero said something one time. He said, there are no mistakes in the big time. And that I've always carried that with me, because there are people that you look at and you go, man, I don't think that they're that good, or how did they get, and then you go, they did it. There must be something working, right? So I'm going to go investigate, talk to that person, figure out what they're doing right. And people who are successful like to mentor. So, talk to them, buy them a cup of coffee or buy them a drink and say, hey, I want to think about this. Help me think about it. A lot of people will do that for you.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. So as we get ready to close, West Cary Group has a reach of what? How can you service anyone in the United States?
Absolutely.
Okay. And when should somebody call you?
When should someone call me?
When should somebody call you, a potential client?
I think when they've got a problem that they can't solve internally. Our power alley is marketing and communications and strategy. So if it's one of those problems, call us. But even if it's a business problem that isn't, kind of immediately recognizable as a marketing problem, I still think call us, because I've assembled a smart group of people that are problem solvers first and marketers second. And so, and we really like solving problems because we like breaking things down into components, figuring out what works, what doesn't, and rebuilding things. So I think when you've got a problem that you can't solve internally, give us a call and we'll help.
Outstanding. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
So if you're interested in more information on the services that West Cary Group provides, please visit westcarygroup.com. Well, that concludes today's episode of Intentionality. Be sure to join me for our next episode. And remember that you must always remain intentional to gain knowledge, skills, and connections so we can grow in business and thrive together. I'm Dominique Simpson-Milton, and I will see you next time.
This has been another episode of Intentionality with Dominique, brought to you by the CVMSDC. For more information, please visit cvmsdc.org.